Welcome to the Making of YOR, a podcast where we turn ideas into game mechanics for our upcoming tabletop RPG, YOR. If you'd like to stay up to date on the developments of YOR, head over to our Discord. Link is in the description. We talked about ranges and stuff like that, like having spell ranges. So instead of like something having a radius, like a fireball, you'd aim it at a target and then it hits like adjacent targets.
Yeah, so anything that could be construed as adjacent, whatever your DM decides that means, probably within 5 feet or something. Yeah. So you'd have a fireball with a range of 60 feet, and then you can shoot a guy and anybody that is determined adjacent to him. So you don't have to worry about, lay out the circle, see if they're within 30 feet, blah, blah, blah. So you can I cast everybody adjacent to him. That's 3 people. Boom.
What would we do in D&D, you can throw a fireball in such a way that you target, like the ground.
Yeah.
So that you miss allies and hit enemies.
I mean, I feel like if you shoot a point in space, it's just all people adjacent to that point in space.
Which is probably the simplest thing. So it'll just be a smaller area, but the DM then could decide if there's 3 enemies, maybe it's either these 2 enemies or these 2 enemies, but you can't get all 3 unless you want to hit your ally too.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Which we've used already in Theater of the Mind type stuff. Without a physical play space to look at, some of that freedom has to just kind of be balanced by the DM.
Yeah, it's like, all right, so you got one of them who's damaged and you're trying to hit him with a sleep spell. So sure, he can be in the party that you're trying to put to sleep. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I like the way, at least on the sleep spell, Baldur's Gate handles it in an interesting way where you just target the enemies that I think it's not an area, right?
It's just, that's how it is. I think it's like a sphere in D&D, but in Baldur's Gate, it's just targets up to a certain amount of hit points.
Yeah, which I think is easier to deal with because with the sphere thing, you get with weird stuff in D&D where I want to cast it at a point.
Yep.
Way up in the sky to only catch like one person.
Yeah, all my party is halfling, so I just cast it at least 3 feet above the ground.
Yeah. I think removing spheres and stuff and making spells, either you hit targets and targets adjacent, or you can hit X number of targets and you pick the targets.
Yeah, like there's no lightning bolt isn't a line. It just hits 4 people. Any 4 people, wherever.
Yeah, and we don't even have to call it lightning bolt. Yeah. We can call it something
chain
else.
Lightning.
Which is, we can call it whatever, but design spells in such a way that
you don't have to worry about like battlefield tactical placement and stuff. It's all like simple language deciding who you can target and how they're targeted.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to do it. To try and keep some tactical nature. And there's going to be an element of tactical nature lost, but you can't avoid that.
The speed gained.
Yeah, the speed gained, and you can't avoid tactical loss once you go to Theater of the Mind.
No.
There's layers that you can't replicate.
Yeah, it's if you wanna play on a battle mat, you could. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
But it's designed to be, or at least it will be designed to be played Theater of the Mind, and all the language is going to be designed to be evocative of something without having to look at a piece of paper or a plastic mat with Sharpie on it or a battle mat on a TV or whatever.
Whatever. So that, if you want to set the stage, which a lot of times we do when we play, of pulling up artwork or theme of this is what the world looks like. This is what.
Like, here's a picture of a castle I found on DeviantArt. That's what the castle looks like to you.
Yeah, that's what this is. So I like that. We also talked about room modifier type stuff.
Yeah, so, like how big of a room you could, like if you shot a fireball into a closet, would it just hit the whole room?
Yeah.
Not worrying about who's adjacent, stuff like that.
Yeah, like what we might call a small room, which might be a bedroom maybe.
Yeah.
Even, I think it would, in an enclosed space like the size of a bedroom, your average bedroom, that it would hit every target inside that
like
space.
A small room is... or a small hallway is like, X feet long by 5 feet wide, something like that.
Yeah.
You can't pass somebody who's not an ally in a small hallway.
Yeah.
Like a list of the different kinds of rooms and the modifiers those rooms have. So it's easy to keep like a little tally of, all right, this is a small hallway and this is a big hallway. And
Yeah, and we could have because we've gone back and forth on this, but yeah, if you just have some tags for hallway and room and stuff like that. So movement in a hallway that's only 5 feet wide or a small hallway. If you try to move past an enemy, you probably have to make some type of check.
Yeah.
To try and get past them. And if you fail that check, something bad happens to you because whatever either reaction or something that we build that they can have that is probably a generic reaction, not really any specialized one.
Yeah, it's anybody can do this.
Someone trying to move past you in your square, if you will, even though we won't have squares, but in your space, you get to do something to them, which could probably just be an attack.
Yeah, it's like they're going to try and stab you in the ass on your way by.
Yeah. If you fail your check as you move by, you take damage.
Just a quick shanking between friends.
Yes. I think that could be that could solve a lot of the questions that I'd had when we were talking about how to bring a tactical nature. And we may not need more than 4 feels like the most we could possibly need of any of those things. Because you have like a small, medium, large, and extra large room. Beyond extra large, whatever modifiers would be on it is
it's open space, basically.
Practically open space.
Yeah, it's anything larger than this is considered open space.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you have like small hallway rules. Like if a hallway is less than 5 feet wide, you can't go past somebody. And then, a couple of incidentals. And I think with 10 entries, you could probably cover basically anything you'd want to put in a dungeon.
Almost everything will fall into 3 categories.
Yeah.
Small, medium, large hallways, small, medium, large rooms. That really, I feel like that should cover almost every
open space, like cracks in the wall. This is basically like a couple of edge cases that you'd add on to the 4 or 5 main ones.
Oh, you mean
like if you tried to crawl through like the tunnels that the cats can go through in Baldur's Gate, like you have to have something like that. You'd have like a little tiny room thing.
Yeah, and even that's just that probably will be a special case. It won't fall into hallways or rooms. It will be
it's just in there and like moving through room stuff section.
Yeah, and so we could have spaces that a medium creature could squeeze through, spaces that a small creature could squeeze through, spaces that like tiny could squeeze through. And then, you talk about, we already talked about objects and destroying those objects.
And size and
because some objects for anything but really high tier characters will be essentially indestructible.
Yeah, it's
they
really
were somehow
hard to break a statue.
Yeah, unless there was something already damaged about it.
Yeah. Easy to pull a big bronze statue off a pillar if you've got a bunch of guys. It's still hard to beat it into scrap metal, even if you have a bunch of guys with hammers.
Yeah, which Baldur's Gate handles it. I'm bringing up Baldur's Gate a lot, but having like medium toughness and like certain types of sturdy properties, like I don't think we have to do something necessarily like that, but something a little bit inspired by that might exist where an object that is normally not possible or really difficult to damage could have something has happened to it. An effect has caused it to be brittle in a way.
Yeah, it's become oxidized.
Yeah.
This iron banded door has rusted.
Yeah. Okay.
Has wither on the bar that's blocking the door, and it becomes
spells.
crunchy and
spells that can do stuff to it. I don't know that we'll have a spell like knock.
Yeah, it's
I would rather more creative use of things than
it's the barbarian has a spell called knock.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So what would we think about we got a small room, really what that means, what would it imply? And the same kind of effects that might apply to a small hallway moving around in it are largely going to apply to the same thing in a small room. Yeah. Trying to move through a small room with enemies in it is going to require checks, or you can't really move through it effectively. What are going to be like distinguishing factors between, let's say, medium and large? What that might mean?
For rooms, it's probably how many people can fit in them or the size of creature that can fit in them.
Okay. Because filling up a medium room, because you could run into the same thing in a small room with regards to, say, like moving through that room. You could have that same thing occur in a medium room if you have enough people in there.
Yes. It's if you have 2 guys blocking the hallway instead of just 1 guy.
Then even a medium hallway is still blocked because there's 2
it's just
adjacent
in a small
guys.
Hallway. There's no way.
One guy is there and he blocks it.
He's enough to do Gandalf at Khazad-dûm.
Yeah. So the distinguishing factors, I think, between medium and large will pretty much come down to, number of people in the room or number of entities of a medium size in the room.
Yeah.
So we might have to come up with some rules for larger creatures and how they might affect it in the niche case where someone wants to stick a large creature in a medium room.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I've just sort of been thinking about a large creature is twice the size of a medium, and a huge creature is 4 times the size of a medium, and a gargantuan creature is 8 times the size of a medium.
I like that.
Yeah, it's,
I think it's simple.
Basic growth function.
Yeah.
Good old square cube law.
Yeah, I think that works really well, and we pretty much could say the same thing of a small room probably fits 4 creatures.
Yeah,
which means a medium room could fit 8 creatures, and a large room
can fit 16 creatures.
We may want that kind of progression for rooms. We might do that kind of progression for always.
So I think what it's going to be,
but large might be double again.
Like large room, 16, 32 people, whatever. If you have more than that, you are in cramped conditions, whatever that means.
Okay.
You have some penalty to trying to move around and hit stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think, that does actually work fine because we can do, 4, 8, 16, 32, maybe up to extra large. And then anything beyond that is just considered open space.
Yeah. So like large room, if we had 16 people in there, we could. If we had 20 people in here, it'd be kind of tight.
Yeah.
We could still get that many people in here, but we would not have the same ability to move around in a tactical situation.
Yeah. I think that's fine. I think, with how we're with the level of things we're simplifying in that, we can add minor amounts of granularity that would mean a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like you talked about, we don't even have to have like one form of cramped condition.
No,
it could be like anything above your maximum, above
your max occupancy.
Yeah, anything above max occupancy creates cramped condition, and there could be a line above that.
Yeah,
where you have
crush conditions.
Yeah, where if you go beyond this, then there's a second tier of how bad that condition is if you continue to pack people
just cram people into this phone booth.
Or essentially, if you have it'd be a little different, I think, if you have a trap.
Yeah.
We'll define, if you have like a room that's getting smaller, that's a trap, and it applies. It works differently.
It applies the cramped condition, and then the crush condition, and then the flat condition.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think just putting people in a room through normal means won't let you progress to...
you got to have those Japanese train shover guys to get that effect.
Yeah. It's a clown car.
All right, come on, buddy. Get out of those cramped conditions. We need your debuff gone.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. Progressive conditions for
too full of a room.
For over your max occupancy. So we talked about shapes and effects with spells.
Yeah.
So are we going to assume that all shapes of spells can also have any effect? I.e., like we talked about lightning hitting multiple targets, and thematically that makes more sense than fire being able to do that, and vice versa. But are you going to have, could you have a fireball that's just targeted?
Well, we talked about that, but that's really coming from the D&D side of things. We don't really necessarily need the spell shapes as much anymore. as much as we need the targeting system. So like a targeted spell that hits one guy, a targeted spell that hits a bunch of guys, a targeted spell that hits one guy and all adjacent to that guy.
So then we could go back to, I don't know, we have an elementalist that allows him to shift elements, which I think is fine no matter what as a subclass. But then maybe we go back and look at, instead of spell shapes, there are in fact spells. And the fire spell that you get at whatever tier 2 or 3, it hits target and all adjacent targets. And you can pick it, or you could do the lightning spell that can hit any 3 guys. And you have to pick and choose unless you have enough.
Unless you're the elementalist.
Unless you're the elementalist or have enough known spells to pick both.
If you picked both, memorized both damage spells, fireball and lightning, chain lightning, you can pick between the two. But
so fireball would let you hit potentially more targets if they're grouped up, but chain lightning lets you just pick 3.
You could hit 9 if everything went super good for you, but that seems unlikely.
Doing that probably includes friends.
It's unless you're throwing it in like a massed battle group, probably not going to hit 9 people.
No.
But you will hit 3 people with lightning.
And can always avoid hitting allies. That might be a good reapproach to what we had done on
the spell shaping forms.
Spell shaping and flexibility. We might, and then we'll need to readdress Wizard then, because Wizard was going to be able to
swap those out a little bit, but
swap those out more. But that could just be that Wizard can swap out, can just at the start of the day, maybe he can't swap spells in the same way that he could originally, but where a sorcerer has to pick a spell when he levels up and he's stuck with that spell, whatever it is, the Wizard might be able to actually have prepared spells essentially and can pick from a list or whatever.
We'll have to, but I like that spell targeting system more than I like the one we have now, especially with going Theater of the Mind. I think that simplifies it a lot.
It really does.
Not having to worry about lines and cones and balls.
Removing all of that means we have to readdress how certain features work. But I don't think it matters because when you get down to gameplay,
we'll save more effort in the long run. Be tweaking Wizard a little bit and giving him something else cool. Then we will trying to figure out, all right, how do we do Theater of the Mind and a 30-foot sphere?
With the new rules we've set up. This is much better. So that'll be readdressed. I think we'll have to sit and brainstorm a little bit regarding.
A lot of us staring into the ether going,
because now I think we go back to picking out thematic variants related to damage types. So what different things do and how they might damage spells applying statuses. Single target spell versus
typically has like a good debuff thing on it. Multi-target spells probably just hit people.
Pretty much. Or you could have a multi-target spell that has a minor debuff and doesn't do damage. Like a sheet of ice. Or a grease type thing, something to affect an area negatively. A darkness type of thing.
Stinking cloud.
Some of that stuff's difficult, though, unless we say that negative statuses, I think we might have to have negative statuses are attached to even area of effect negative statuses. If we end up building any of those, they need to be attached to a creature. Because otherwise, you don't have a map. So dealing with
how is this section of floor going to be represented?
It needs to just be attached to a creature.
The grease spell makes you slippery. Not the floor.
The lube up spell.
The frictionless glide.
The Wizard casts grease on self. Is that not what we're doing?
Not right now, buddy. Wrong time. Inappropriate. What else do we need? We've got targeting, we've got like room sizes, we've got distance. What else do we need to really shore up Theater of the Mind?
At some point addressing weapons. And I think we have a lot to work on probably on weapons. And not necessarily in what the weapon does, but how everyone interacts with the weapon and what the benefits and negatives or limitations are. Because we've talked about simplifying weapons down where they basically just do damage, and all weapons are essentially the same, except for you have ranged weapons and weapons that hit adjacent people.
Yeah.
And other than that, your variation in how effective a weapon is has to do with your class.
Yeah.
And
how good you are at weapons determines how much damage you do, really.
Yeah, and for the most part, being better with weapons has to do with what class you are.
Yeah.
Aside from possibly other things like a boon or things that you could gain that might allow
we're not locking people out of anything. We just make it inconvenient to get to.
Yeah, it might be feats, although I think increasing a tier of weapon, given how our feat structure is going to work, that would probably be too good, too easy, or too much of a benefit to gain from a feat. Because that's kind of a major class feature for the classes that weapon focus. If you want a
tier 4 weapon proficiency and you're a wizard, probably have to wait to tier 4 to take that feat.
Yeah, which that's a tough one to give out, because it's kind of like an iconic class feature for one archetype of one class to get to.
But like, I feel like if you're a tier 4 wizard and you're wasting a feat on getting better at a sword rather than being better at spellcasting, that's just your build.
Well, it might make more sense that it be a spell. I don't know.
Yeah, there could be a weapon mastery spell that makes you.
Yeah, for a combat or for a temporary period of time, like, you gain it.
Whatever, Tensor's transformation kind of thing.
That would, I think, make more sense than you can just, go all the way to equivalent with this fighter at this skill in perpetuity.
Yeah, tier 4 spell, muscle wizard.
Yeah, I like that better. And I think that would make sense.
Yeah.
If you want a muscle wizard, he's using magic to be muscly, not just getting so good with a sword that
he's not practicing, he's cheating.
He's cheating like wizards do. The fundamental game plan of a wizard.
Yeah.
Game the system.
Yeah, if you can't win, cheat. If you can't cheat, don't play. The wizard's mantra.
But that's tier 4 stuff. Yeah. We don't have to worry about that.
We're not there yet.
We need a playable tier 2 before we worry about anything else.
Oh my God, we need to
play. Yeah.
But we had talked about simplifying them down, like you said, to just where they just do damage, and we just have the tiers of proficiency at 1, 2, 3, and 4, determining broadly how much damage you do, and whether you have a dagger and tier 3 proficiency or a great sword and tier 3 proficiency. They do the same damage.
Yeah. Which, and you'd be like, well, what would be the difference between wielding them? Well, one of them is obviously look, aesthetic to your character. Yeah. Another is going to be in probably weapon tags.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could have a dagger would be a finesse weapon.
Yeah.
So your dex would, potentially affect the damage. We've talked about whether or not how that would apply.
Yeah, because we don't have that kind ability modifiers and stuff.
We don't.
We also talked about daggers being the only ones that do full damage in a grapple.
Yeah, we've talked about that. It could be another big thing that daggers could have is just the fact that they are concealable.
Yeah, they're hard to find on a search. It's hard to tell you're armed when you're carrying a dagger.
Yeah, and so basic attacks, they're going to do the same. But a great sword or a great axe might have a weapon attack that does a lot of damage or allows you to do something, or class features might require you be wielding a type of weapon to utilize that class feature.
Yeah, you need a heavy two-handed or whatever we decide to do.
Yeah, so we can look at weapon tags to create why you would choose a certain weapon in a build path.
Mm-hmm.
So, we won't limit you in a way that would say, well, you really have to use a great sword because it's just better than the glaive or the pike or the halberd or the glaive or the great axe. No, halberd, glaive, great axe, they might have a different weapon attack, but like to utilize a class feature, we'll just say it has to be a heavy weapon.
Yeah,
and those are all heavy weapons.
Matter.
They all do the same damage and they're all heavy weapons. They just have a different weapon feature.
They're all big, slappy pieces of metal.
Yeah. And if you have something that says you have to be using a dagger, or like I say, daggers being concealable. So basic attack damage will look the same. It's just features and tags and what other...
Yeah, some sort of customization that isn't just longsword is different than a katana, that is different from a kopis, that is different from...
Yeah. So I think we're going to make... and it might stay that way. We might break them depending on how many things we do in the uniqueness of how a weapon is in its effectiveness. We might make a large medium or a large small or heavy does something. We might make some classification between little weapons and big weapons. And they matter either to the type of character wielding it or they could affect damage in some way, but probably not the damage die. So the damage dies.
It's like a heavy weapon adds 1 to your damage.
Yeah, or allows you to apply a stat that you have in some way to damage. Yeah, something there. I like the idea, though, of keeping damage die all the same for weapons.
They're always a D6 plus something.
And we still have to work on what it might mean to wield a weapon in 2 hands, what it might mean to dual wield, and what might be the requirements when spell casting. Probably as simple as, and I think it's a good idea to just say that you have to have a free hand to cast a spell, or you have to have something that is a spell focus.
Yeah.
In that hand. So a wand,
a holy symbol, something
related to, you
Shillelagh.
You might be able to enchant, you might be able to wield, we could have enchantments that can only be applied to certain types of weapons. If we end up having some type of classification, you might say that you might be able to enchant a weapon and make it a weapon that can be a spell focus.
Yeah, that's a magic sword that lets you cast spells with it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a big seller at every magic shop in world.
Yeah, probably. So I think that we'll be able to do something to encompass the idea that there is a difference between a greatsword and a dagger.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's a difference between them. But keeping it away from damage die or really just basic attacks and making it apply in a different form of granularity.
That we can add like a little bit of like finesse and like flavor or whatever to the weapons, but nobody really cares if you're doing, killing a guy with a dagger or killing a guy with a greatsword. That's just flavor.
Yeah, I think approaching it a different way, especially because, when you have D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, 2D6.
Yeah.
That's way too much. And maybe we'll find in building this that we're overshooting to simplicity and we might have to make some adjustments. But I think staying away from 5 different sets or 6 different sets of dies.
Yeah, because we've already crunched down all the weapon die system into 1 die, so we don't have the D4 through D12 system or 2D6 system that 5e has, or the even worse one that 3.5 had.
Yeah, it's too much. And being able to move between weapons and not be, like we talked about, the spear versus trident issue.
Yeah, look at this. They're the exact same stats in 5e, but one's simple and one's martial.
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah. I like the idea that the usability of all these different weapons be available, but benefits existing within them be sourced from other things than just the weapon.
Yeah.
Like why can't a warlock wield a trident?
Right.
Why can't a trident be a monk weapon if a spear can be a monk weapon?
They're the exact same, but no.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm a water, way of the water type themed monk, I want a trident. That's what I want to be wielding.
I want to be Slappy Aquaman.
Yeah. So removing some of the, I think, pointless types of weapon variant.
Yeah, it's, stuff that you care about mechanically for your character. We can have those as like little modifiers and additions in some little system to balance those. But nobody really gives a shit if your character's stabbing somebody with a longsword versus a dagger.
Yeah.
So you just want whichever one you think fits the vibe of your character.
Yeah. So we'll just wholesale say they're all the same and then slowly piecemeal. We'll add things back in to create the right level of verisimilitude that the truthiness that we need, without hindering creative gameplay.
Yeah, I think like it's a way better way to design a subtle, more elegant solution to a problem is simplify it down as much as you can and then add back in only what you need.
Yeah. You have to delete from the process. Sometimes it feels a little overwhelming. I've spent a couple days here like re-going back to this whole weapons are all the same thing and being like, I don't get this.
Yeah, this feels weird. It feels wrong.
Yeah, it feels wrong. But if we use enough other systems, we can create enough difference between them that there'll still be themes as to why you might pick different things.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's weapons for now.
I dig it.
We'll have to work on it, but I think it's a cool direction to take weapons.
Absolutely.
Anything else we want to mess with?
Not off the top of my head.
All right. Well, how about then for the rest of the podcast, let's talk about Wizard, because we've adjusted something that is it's going to affect more than just Wizard. I think there'll be some others, maybe even in Sorcerer we have to look through.
Yeah.
But it's going to affect Wizard the most because one of his core features was spell shaping and changing the flavor. So if we get rid of that, and it's also going to mean we're going to have to look at the Elementalist and what that will mean for him.
Yeah.
We might have to, which we never wrote down anything.
Yeah, we just
detailed.
knew that he could do this.
We knew he could do, changing the element for free, but that might now look different.
Yeah.
We might have Elementalist, could have subtypes, and it could be like specializations in certain types of damage.
Yeah.
We'll see. Or we'll replace the Elementalist. If we come up with nothing good, we
already did it. What was it?
Chronomancer.
Chronomancer got capped in the head in favor of Witch, so it can happen to anybody.
Yeah. Sage got capped for Witch. And then one of the subclasses, two of the subclasses, I think, changed.
For like Oracle and something else.
Ritualist and we put Alchemist, I think,
Alchemist,
back in.
Yeah. Alchemist got moved to Witch. Nobody's safe, people.
Yeah. Anything could be changed. And I think there's a decent chance with this change that Elementalist might go away, but that's fine. Necromancer is a great wizard subclass and is probably going to be the most desired one.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yes, I want my army of undead minions.
Yeah. That's going to be a big subclass.
Half the reason we made this stupid system is so that I could do that.
Yeah. We got Magician, who's going to be more illusionist. But we don't really, we haven't talked about if spells are going to have like classes of schools and things like that. I don't know if we're going to do that.
Yeah, I mostly like, combat and utility are the two kinds of spells.
Those are really the two primary tags
spells that do stuff and spells that hurt people. Pretty
much. Well, we'll have some because you'll have spells that don't do damage but are for combat.
Yeah.
Like whatever our variant of Hold Person is.
Yeah.
That we've started building. We talked about. I think that's cool.
Yeah, they can hurt you emotionally.
Yeah. Very psychological torment. And maybe that's what our wizard, I don't know if we put a psionic guy in here yet. Or any
I think psionics is a boon classroom.
Yeah, we did talk about that, and that's probably better.
Because I like that Dark Sun, anybody can be psychic.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because it's more... It doesn't really fit with the wizard theme anyway.
Yeah.
It's not a learned skill in the same way.
You have a brain mutation. Now, we talked about the 3 different targeting systems. Like point, and adjacent, any number. What if they have a thing that lets them spend up to turn a targeted spell into a targeted and adjacent, or a thing that lets them spend more resource to add more targets to their targeted spell?
Okay. That would be a different form of spell shaping. I like that. How would you upgrade? Oh, so it's just alteration. You could take a spell that hits all adjacent and maybe you could, like a per point of resource spent, you could protect one individual.
Yeah, you could, shield somebody from that effect, or You add more lightning bolts to your chain lightning.
So like adjusting an AoE one is, it won't make the AoE bigger, but it allows you to
sculpt it into
sculpt that hit all adjacents to not hit every
if your
adjacent.
barbarian's in there, he really likes that spell.
Yeah. And then the one that hits targeted, you could spend a point to add a target. The one that hits only one person, we'll have to see which spell it is. And we might even apply these not to the type of targeting they are, but each spell might have to be balanced around it. Because some of those like completely immobilize someone's spells may have to be more than 1 point to hit another person.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking like if it's a targeted spell, it's probably double the point cost or something to hit more than one person.
Yeah, it might be that high.
If it's like a disintegrate, it costs way more to hit somebody else with that disintegrate than it does to hit one more person with a chain lightning.
Yes. And I agree. We'll figure out what the number needs to be.
But I think that might be a better direction to tame spell shaping rather than change it from a line to a cone to a ball to a single target.
Yes. Yes, I agree. That's what we're going to do with spell shaping.
Perfect.
And that may be all we have to do, because that's pretty powerful.
Yeah,
if the wizard's the one who can do it and none of the other spellcasters can do that.
Versatility in spell casting, because he's used to magic in a way that all the other spellcasters aren't.
Yeah, the other spellcasters are utilizing really someone else's power in some way.
Yeah.
And
they're wizard from nature or their blood or somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere if you're a warlock. The wizard understands why the spell works the way that it works.
Yeah, it's sufficiently advanced magic or sufficiently understood science or magic is indistinguishable from science.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's the opposite of sufficient or any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah.
Any sufficiently understood magic is indistinguishable from science.
For the wizard, this is true. Okay, so that's spell shaping. I like that.
Hell yeah.
Well, we got through that really quick. And I think that's a great change. It actually works better than the other thing and way better for theater of the mind.
More elegant.
Yeah, so that's what we want. We want to be pretty, pretty people. How about elementalists? What should we do? Because if we're going to attach elements to types of spells.
Yeah.
And then we're still going to have to talk about, and I think we'll probably end up doing it, which is making... we might still have creatures having vulnerabilities to types, or we might have elements interacting with the environment in some way. We have to be careful with that because we can make it too hard to deal with.
Yeah, it's if everything you do sets stuff on fire and keeps it burning for a while, that's hard on the DM to keep track of when there's no battle mat.
If everything that's wet gets affected differently by lightning, that's a new problem.
Yeah, as cool as it is that I can drop a bunch of water on the floor in Baldur's Gate and then hit that shit with lightning and fry everyone, that's too much for a non-computer to do.
Yes, it is. It's too much to keep track of. And inevitably, you'll have confusion between players and the DM on what's happening. So if we keep elements as certain types of enemies may have resistances or vulnerabilities to elements, which was something we talked about not having at all. But I think it's still, I think it's good to have.
Yeah.
I think it's good to have. It makes Magic a little more interesting in all the ways that we're simplifying Magic system. To keep some damage type stuff, I think is a good idea.
Yeah. Well, we had talked about there's no like vulnerabilities or resistance or whatever. There's just damage and true damage. And true damage reduces or is unreducible.
Yeah.
So if you can get a thing that does like red dragons aren't resistant to fire or whatever, but they take true damage from ice.
Yes. Which is, not vulnerability in the way that 5e treats vulnerability, but a form of vulnerability. Yeah.
You're not changing the math. You're just simplifying the combat because he can't resist it as well.
Yes. Agreed. And so I like that. And that way you still feel like that there's a reason you're choosing certain spells beyond their just are they an AoE or are they a target. It's also
what manner of
damage
are you doing?
You know, and so when you're looking at the spell sword, who's going to probably be able to apply different types of damage to his weapon, he'll choose that weapon or choose that damage type based on information, which we know that the soldier's going to be good at having. the soldier
'cause,
can size up for a variety of
tell
things.
the wizard, all right, he's weak to ice, blast him.
Yeah, which I like. I like that as a cool interaction.
Yeah, it's having the elementalist be able to switch flavors on his spells and maybe have a specialization. Like he's particularly good at this one, but he can use them all.
Yeah.
I don't know yet. We may come up with something better than elementalist.
Yeah, I think
It's definitely the weakest of magician and necromancer.
there's less we can do with it.
Yeah.
That's the real problem to me in the way that we're constructing it. So we can do something pretty easy with it at, say, tier 2, but it's a lot harder to do stuff with it at tier 3 and 4 that will compare to what we could do with the other.
Yeah. Although we may just keep it there to be simple because some people just want to play a wizard that is really incredibly good at setting vast swaths of things on fire.
Yeah.
Although that may be more of a sorcerer thing.
Yeah. In some ways, it does feel.
Yeah, be a dragon. Burn.
Yeah. Well, I think we still will need to give some more thought to Elementalist, even though I think we have a good tier 2 Elementalist we could do simply in changing damage types. His long-term viability may be a lot harder to implement with cool stuff. And I want all the options to be cool.
Yeah, I feel like more damage is just boring. He should have something.
Yeah, and that's essentially what you can do with it is that, well, he gets better at dealing damage with certain damage types. It's not fun to me. I mean, it is fun in doing damage, but it's not interesting.
I like number go up, but I'd like a little more something, It lacks that je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, it's just filling. It's not tasty.
Like, I like gravy, but I need more.
I want sausage in my gravy.
I'm not going to lie. Get some sausage in that gravy is a great tagline for any podcast.
It is the best gravy. I don't care what anyone says.
Facts.
We're from the South. We know about gravy.
Well familiar.
All right. Well,
we got anything else?
No, probably just Elementalist. So I think we'll close it out there. We're close enough to a long enough podcast.
Sounds good to me.
Catch y'all next time.